Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 2020 StoryCorps Gala. I'm honored to be your MC for this evening's virtual event, celebrating the 17th anniversary of an organization that has been a big part of my life. I'm not only a big fan of StoryCorps' work, I'm also a former staff member. You see, before I became a writer, I worked as a facilitator for StoryCorps, where I had the pleasure and privilege of helping others tell their stories. We're going to hear a lot of stories tonight, but first, I'd like to play just a little bit from a story I recorded when I was training for my job at StoryCorps.
My mom, she's definitely my angel.
Yeah.
I have fond memories of being a child, and the first thing she told me to say was, I can do anything. I had to say it every night before I go to bed.
After StoryCorps, do you have an idea of where you want to go next?
I want to be a writer. I really believe that every person walking this earth has a story. Everybody has a story that could change the outlook of life for somebody else.
I can't believe that was me at 22. Sharing my story with StoryCorps gave me the chance to talk about my dreams out loud. Tonight, I hope the stories we experience together can help us all find inspiration, courage, and hope. This evening, StoryCorps is proud to honor two individuals whose work reflects this mission. Carla Hassan, Chief Marketing Officer at Citi and longtime StoryCorps partner, and Gala LaMarche, StoryCorps Board Chair and President of Democracy Alliance. As you know, 2020 has been a year of enormous struggle, with massive challenges engulfing our nation from the pandemic to the nationwide protests over systemic racism. We've chosen some stories to share with you tonight that speak to the moment and that we hope will touch, teach, and inspire you. But first, let's learn more about the genius and genesis of StoryCorps in this short video.
On October 23, 2003, StoryCorps launched in Grand Central Terminal to give people the chance to record meaningful conversations about their lives and pass wisdom from one generation to the next. Since that day, 500,000 Americans have recorded StoryCorps conversations for our archive at the Library of Congress. It's the largest single collection of human voices ever gathered. Many millions more have been moved by the stories we've shared from these interviews. Over the years, StoryCorps has perfected a method to help people feel more connected and less alone, to increase hope and decrease fear of the other, and to shine a light on our best and truest selves. Today, StoryCorps' work is more important than ever. So this is our pledge to you. Over the next 15 years and beyond, we will continue to serve as a beacon of hope. We will continue to whisper truths in people's ears about who we are and what's important. We will continue to bring our work into every corner of the country until there are no more people that feel unheard. We will continue to sew stitch after stitch in the national tapestry of hope until we are whole. And we won't stop even then. It's a miracle that StoryCorps exists. Thank you for all you've done to give this organization life. This is only the beginning.
I love thinking of StoryCorps as stitching together a national tapestry of hope. And I'm proud to introduce the person who is helping to build a culture of listening, one story at a time, and also the guy that gave me a job at 22 years old, the founder of StoryCorps, and my friend, Dave Isay.
Thank you, Jason, for emceeing our virtual gala this evening. I loved having you at StoryCorps as a facilitator, and it's been such a thrill to watch your career skyrocket. And we all know you're just getting started. A year ago, none of us could have imagined the world we'd be living in now. And today, the work of StoryCorps, giving us hope and strength and reminding us of who we can be at our best, is more urgent and relevant than ever. It takes a team of dedicated, creative, and brilliant staff to record, produce, and edit the interviews we capture every year, reaching tens of millions of Americans each week. I'm proud to introduce the person who sits at the helm of this work, Lisa Gale. Lisa?
Thank you, Dave. In my role as Chief Program Officer at StoryCorps, I am honored to be surrounded by and work with some of the smartest, most compassionate people around, all of whom are dedicated to the mission and values of StoryCorps. Jason Reynolds is just one example of the quality, heart, and brilliance of the wonderful people I get to work with each day. It takes a village, and I am so proud to be part of this one. The best introduction to StoryCorps is through the stories themselves. We'll start with Sylvia's legacy, in which a great-grandmother's wisdom is passed down through the generations. Let's watch.
I was in love with Tyrone. My relationship was heating up, and my parents knew that, so they had to take charge. Mother told me we would be spending the summer in the South, and that's where I was going to be introduced to my great-grandmother, Sylvia. She was 106 years old, and I just did not want to be spending my time with a senile old woman. But 4 days later, we were in Farmerville, Louisiana. Driving on this old road, I saw this log cabin, and I noticed on the front porch, that was her. She had a slender, almost frail frame, but I still found her to be regal looking. And at night, she would tell her stories. When the Civil War ended, she was my age. She was 16. She said even though she had freedom, not knowing how to read and write made her feel like a jigsaw puzzle with some of the pieces missing. And when she was 85 years old, she said, it stops here. She got help from grown-ups, and sometimes from children, and she would study on her own. And then she told me that she had something special to show me. She went to a cedar chest at the foot of her bed, and she opened it up. And when I saw what it was, I was wondering, why is she bringing me this old tattered church fan? But when she turned it over, scrawled on the back of that fan, she had printed Sylvia. She told me that when she could spell her name, that was when she got her freedom. She passed in 1965, but Grandma Sylvia is living on in my heart.
Let's watch 2 more stories about being Black in America created by StoryCorps this year. The first is from John Washington, who was born blind with a severe loss of hearing. He raised his 3 kids with his wife, Ruth, who was also blind and deaf. At StoryCorps, he spoke with his eldest child, Melva, using a telebraille machine that translates her typed questions into Braille for him to read and answer. Here's John Washington, age 95.
You are my first child. I was so glad you were born. I cannot express the way I feel when I held your sweet little body. I kissed you. I loved you. Oh, Melva, I was so proud when I started taking you out with me. You could take me by the hand and lead me where you wanted to go.
Do you have any favorite stories about raising us?
Raising us. One night, I did catch you trying to sneak out.
We knew our parents couldn't see, and we used to slip out at night, so Daddy started sleeping in front of the door.
One story is, I was getting ready to give Warren a bath, but as I picked him up to put him in the tub, he said, Daddy, I got my shoes on.
What were some of your proudest moments?
What are my proudest moments? Well, I did not graduate from high school, so I began to read books in Braille to learn the ways of life. And then I taught people to read Braille. So if I can help some person, then my living will not be in vain.
Do you have any questions for me?
Have questions?
For me?
Yes, I'm 95, and I might live to be 100. What are you going to do with me?
I am going to take care of you the best I can.
You're doing a wonderful job. God bless you.
Daddy, I thank you for the interview.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Melva.
My grandfather began to build a farm in the 1920s, and my father saw it as a responsibility to stay on the home place. He didn't leave the soil. I saw my father enlarge through the land, and I saw the land as my father's heart. He stayed within hollering distance of my grandmother. She would stand on her front porch, and she could holler, literally, from across the pasture, across the holler. That's what I always thought that holler meant. I didn't know it was a geographical thing. Going back and forth between my grandmother's house and my parents' house, I would stop to investigate whirligig beetles, and bobwhite quail were usually in some thicket somewhere along the way. If it was winter, I was breaking ice on puddles that tadpoles had been in the spring. It might take me a couple of hours to walk that. It seemed like 1,000 miles.
How far literally was it?
Less than a quarter of a mile. Once I left for college, everybody said, "You're good at math and science. Be an engineer, make money, Drew." And for a while, I tried that, but hated every last moment of it. Dad was 52 when he died of a heart attack. There were arguments about what would happen on the land. And I can remember coming back home, all of these wonderful forests that I'd grown up in had been clear-cut. And losing that land was like losing my father all over again. I remember leaving that day and driving up this dirt road and stopping where the paved road began, and there's this bird called a prairie warbler that's singing this zee 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 zee. And it was the most hopeful thing for me. I never believed that I should be an engineer. I said, I can't do this anymore. Went back to my apartment.
Dark night of the soul.
I got a big bowl of Fruit Loops and thought about the next steps. I remember first going out to study these eastern bluebirds, and the work was often hot and long hours. But there were these moments when I would look up and there would be flocks of bobolinks or the songs of eastern meadowlarks. And taking the moment to realize that I was doing what I had always dreamed. From a very early age, I believed that I would be someone who somehow found a way to fly. And so I would like to think that my father would see my turn towards the study of nature as carrying a legacy forward.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Drew Lanham.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a cultural ornithologist, a wildlife conservationist, poet, and author with an abiding love of the South Carolina Piedmont, where I was raised. And so storytelling is central to my work, since it's the means by which we begin to transcend the boundaries that separate us. That's why I was so honored to participate in the StoryCorps interview with my friend John Lane. As a Black man, to be seen to have your life matter, that matters. And that's why I'm grateful to StoryCorps for helping me tell my story, and for creating such a beautiful animation, which took the story to another level, offering a colorful, moving painting of my wild, bird-adoring Black life. I'm grateful that people can see it take flight in color through StoryCorps.
What a wonderful night of stories to inspire, bring us closer together, show that what we have in common is always greater than what divides us. Now more than ever, StoryCorps needs partners of vision and compassion to help it in its work. Tonight, we are fortunate to honor such partners, Citi and Carla Hassan, its Chief Marketing Officer. We are grateful for your partnership and inspired by your commitment to advance business and society. I invite everyone to take a quick look at how you are celebrating powerful moments in history for pay equity, standing against racial injustice, and helping athletes around the globe have the chance to share their talents and shape their stories.
Do you know what you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be a teacher, an engineer, a doctor. I want to be a vet.
A vet, awesome. So, I'm going to be talking to you about a couple of things and asking you questions and how you feel about it.
Okay.
So, what if I told you that, in general, that women get paid less than men?
That would make me feel mad. I'd rather have what the boys get. That's kind of confusing.
Confusing?
Yeah, it's not fair.
I'd be a little bit shocked at that because I think that women and men are equal.
I feel really angry because it's like they don't want girls to look strong.
That makes me feel like I want to do something about it.
I love so many things that girls are usually allowed to do, but I feel like there's just more to us than looking pretty. I guess some people just don't see girls doing that.
And do you see yourself being a boss someday?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I do want to be a boss.
City has been a proud partner of StoryCorps for many years, and I feel privileged to be honored here today. As you just saw, there is great synergy between StoryCorps' visionary work to elevate and inspire and the principles at the core of City. I personally had a wonderful opportunity a few weeks ago to participate in a virtual StoryCorps recording using StoryCorps' platform to keep connected in the time of COVID-19. I had such a fun conversation with a longstanding friend, Brad Jakeman, and while we've known each other over many years, the intimacy of a StoryCorps recording brought added warmth and a new gift to our hearts. It is a recording that I will treasure forever, and I'm happy to share my experience with you all.
The pivotal moment for me of our friendship and when I knew that we were going to be friends forever was when we went through that horrible experience with Noor. After our parents, you were the first phone call to tell that we had found this tumor on Noor's right kidney and that we had no clue what it was. The way that you reacted, not just as my boss, but as a human and as a friend of mine, was incredible. And I've never felt more supported in my life.
How do you think that experience shaped you as a person, as a professional, as a mom?
It's colored every part of who I am. It's how I think about how I want to treat people. It's made me so much more empathetic. It just put a different lens on what's important in life. And every time I get mad about something, I pause for a second and I'm like, but we're alive and we're healthy and we're here.
You are an awesome friend, an awesome professional, an awesome human being. I'm so lucky to have you in my life.
Oh, thank you. And I really appreciate you in my life.
Congratulations, Carla, to you and to Citi. Thank you for leading the way and showing how companies can do well by doing good. Now, as Dave and Lisa shared earlier, 2020 raised new challenges and also new opportunities for StoryCorps. We maintained our core programs, bringing uplifting content to audiences when messages of hope were needed the most. And we also quickly evolved our interview recording practices to create new ways to help individuals connect safely. On behalf of the StoryCorps board and staff, I want to thank you for your thoughtful contributions to our gala and throughout the year. You will see on the screen our gala leadership donors who have helped to make this evening's virtual event a real success. We are deeply grateful for their support and to the many others who have made gala gifts, especially this year. We want to offer a special word of thanks to Mackenzie Scott for her recent transformative gift to StoryCorps. We are so honored to be part of the prestigious change-making organizations she chose to make significant investments in this year. Thank you, Mackenzie. Please know that support at all levels from our donors inspires everyone at StoryCorps. Your gifts have an immediate impact on our work and help advance our mission of bringing humanity together to listen, honor, and share. Thank you. And let's continue on with the show.
I went there for 2 years with a minister named Reverend J.J. Simmons. The white men, they would not let us register to vote. They would sit there. They had tables, and they would be playing dominoes. I didn't even know how to play dominoes. But do you know I learned to play standing there watching them? They would ask you silly questions like this man, I never will forget his name, Mr. Cox. He was chair of the board of registrars. He asked me, how many black jelly beans in a jar? How many red ones in there? And I told him, you don't know how many jelly beans. He told me to shut my black mouth. Shut up. Well, the next Monday, I told Reverend Simmons that I was not going back. I said, because I'm not going to be embarrassed like that anymore. He said, you want to vote, don't you? I said, yes. He said, we're going to go until the building falls down. So we're going to be there every time they open that door. He said, now in the morning, I'll be by to pick you up. You going. And that is the day Mr. Cox asked me to recite part of the preamble to the Constitution. I don't really think he knew, but I recited it. He said, you're going to pass today because we are tired of looking at your black faces. And then he gave me my slip that I was a registered voter. We did vote in the next election. It was a joy. But the thing about it is, I didn't feel that it should have been this hard. I knew it shouldn't have been this hard.
It is such a thrill tonight to honor my dear, dear friend and StoryCorps' longtime board chair, Gala LaMarche. Gala has played a monumental role in the evolution and growth of StoryCorps over his past 9 years leading the organization. He's everything you could ask for in a board chair. Gala is brilliant, committed, and deeply ethical. He's generous to a fault with bulletproof integrity and an unshakable moral core. He is a personification of servant leadership and has taught me more than he will ever know. Gala has not only helped build the organization that is StoryCorps, he's also helped build our archive by recording interviews. Lots of interviews, from his friends to mentors to teachers to colleagues, and of course with loved ones. Here's a brief excerpt of some of the interviews he's done with his closest family members.
Hi, Mom.
Hi. Dad and I became quite friendly with Father O'Gara. When I became pregnant with you, I decided, after talking it over with Dad, that I would like to call you Gara, because I knew that someday you were going to be famous.
My mother made a home that was welcoming and lively, and I see the kind of homes I wanted to make. I see my mother very much in that.
I feel that I've done the same things. In the past, it's embarrassed me. Like, you'll lay down on a park bench in a full suit because you just want to get some sun. You'll eat a Tootsie Pop in a board meeting.
I think you have a sense that I enjoy life and all those small parts of it. I like to think of myself that way. As kids, we must have been a little challenging. Dad was an altar boy, and he was interested in sports. He did a million things that we had no interest in. True. And yet, I never had any sense of disapproval at all.
Never.
You know what I mean?
Mm-mm.
And I always had this sense that there was no limit on what I could do. Yeah.
There's a wonderful German word, Lebensgefährder.
Lebensgefährder.
Yes, which is a beautiful word that means the person with whom I traveled through life with.
I feel this enormous good fortune, and it kind of grows as time goes by. I find myself sometimes looking at you across the table, or you're reading, you're laughing on the phone. I couldn't feel more fortunate than to be your, Lebensgefährder, whatever.
Gara, know that in addition to those beautiful voices and faces, you'll always have a second family here at StoryCorps. Here are just a few messages from your fellow board members and the StoryCorps staff.
It's easy to talk about Gara because he's an extraordinary person.
Gara can rock a pair of cowboy boots with a business suit better than Burt Reynolds.
Chairing a startup nonprofit for 9 years is hard, and Gara made it look easy.
Gara is this unbelievably uncommon combination of being deeply passionate about social justice and also being incredibly poised, practical, and thoughtful.
He works with a seriousness of purpose and a sense of urgency, but not careless or without compassion.
He is somebody who has always understood the power of narrative and stories, the importance of equality and justice.
He has the ability to really connect with people at all levels in the organization.
He knows that our sacred organization is here to help people listen a little more to each other, and through that experience, ultimately have more compassion for the people around us.
It's been both a true honor and a real pleasure to work alongside him.
When I first met Gara, I hoped that we would become friends. As it happened, he wanted to be my friend. I'm very grateful for that.
Gara trusts people, has a generous heart, and a willingness to draw on his vast reservoir of knowledge to strengthen StoryCorps.
He's really just an incredible leader, and we're incredibly lucky to have him.
In every way, StoryCorps is a better organization because of Gara, and for that, I'll thank him now, and I'll thank him forever.
Thank you, Gara. You have truly helped StoryCorps become the beloved national institution that it is today.
Thank you, Gara.
Thank you for everything that you have done for all of us, and we so greatly appreciate your leadership, your friendship, your warmth, and your compassion.
It's a great privilege to introduce my boss, Gala LaMarche.
I hear you clapping out there on your couch or at your desk or dinner table. I even put on a tie for you. Thank you very much. Anyone who knows me is aware that my role at StoryCorps, where I've served almost 9 years as board chair, is a true labor of love for me. I have been blessed with a wonderful family, a rich career in social justice and philanthropy, and the opportunity to serve on many other boards advancing the mission of critical human rights, arts, and philanthropy groups. But StoryCorps occupies a very special place. Over the years, I've joked, given the often controversial nature of the many causes I've been involved with over more than 40 years, that StoryCorps is the only thing I do that I can talk about over Thanksgiving dinner with my family without provoking an argument. It transcends partisan, ideological, and cultural differences, and is more than ever what we need in this world right now. There are two things I particularly want to leave you with tonight about StoryCorps, and each has to do with one of the words in our portmanteau name. First, about story. Lin-Manuel Miranda famously asked in Hamilton, "Who lives? Who dies? Who tells your story?" The premise of StoryCorps is that you get to tell it, unmediated by the too often toxic media and entertainment environment in which we increasingly live. We've had a few well-known names sit down for StoryCorps sessions, including John Lewis and Barack Obama, but the vast majority of those who do are everyday people. Bus drivers and janitors, teachers and nurses, farmers and factory workers. We cry most weeks at these stories not because they're all sad, but because they move us with their resilience, their courage, and their essential optimism. We're not alone in what we feel. We can find connection in our common humanity with people we have never met, whose life circumstances may be vastly different from our own. In providing a platform for the stories of those who have often gone unheard, and in underscoring through our inclusiveness that every human life has worth and meaning, StoryCorps powerfully advances the cause of social justice, to be sure. But beyond that, it shows that everyone is a good story, and everyone can be a good storyteller. And each week we bring to the world the equal of a hit Broadway play or a prize-winning novel in the tapestry of human emotions and experiences we feature. We are a democracy of stories. The other word is corps, a kind of peaceful army. Now that can refer to the hundreds of people who have come through the StoryCorps staff and the community organizations they work with as our mobile van has moved across America seeking out and collecting the stories of our fellow humans. But it can also refer to something I want to stress here as I close. It can mean all of us. We are all part of that corps. I've been privileged to serve as a kind of general in that army of hope, leading a visionary and hardworking board, and as those 9 years near an end, my heart is bursting at the honor of serving our mission in this special way. Everyone listening now is also part of that corps. We all share the obligation of stewardship of this extraordinary and irreplaceable institution, to promote it, to use it in our own lives, and to support it financially as generously as we can. I will always be in StoryCorps' corner, even as my role will soon change. But I leave that role the honor of a lifetime, buoyed by the understanding that each of you and all of us will work even harder to make StoryCorps all it can be for the generations to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gala, for your leadership of StoryCorps over the years, and especially this year during the pandemic. When COVID-19 struck, StoryCorps knew it would have to quickly adapt its services to the reality we're now all living in. Up until March 2020, every single StoryCorps interview had been recorded face-to-face. But realizing that that approach was no longer possible, StoryCorps set out to create a new virtual recording service. With the help of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, StoryCorps Connect was born in a matter of weeks. It's a way to honor a loved one's life remotely and upload that conversation to the Library of Congress, where it becomes part of American history. Let's watch some excerpts from stories from the thousands of Americans who have used StoryCorps Connect since it came online this spring.
Without you, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've been able to do at work. And I know it hasn't been easy.
Could you guys try not to cry? It makes me sad when you cry.
Oh, sorry, honey.
One of the hardest things is coming home and just being alone.
I wish I could be there with you, brother. I do.
On our first day, people pulled their cars over and got out of their cars, and they started applauding.
I want you to know that you got a brother in me for life now.
We're going to make it through this, man. We're going to make it through.
I want to share another story now. a StoryCorps animation that tells of an earlier pandemic. Stephen Lynch was raised by gay parents in the early 1980s. At StoryCorps, he remembers what it was like growing up in the early days of AIDS.
My family were mostly gay guys who were my babysitters and the guys who, took the pictures at my birthday parties. And I felt like I had this amazing family. I called them my aunties. And it was a really wonderful, amazing world that came crashing down. Starting in 1982, the first person I knew died of AIDS. A young guy named Steve.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 10 when he was diagnosed. I remember I was on the beach at Fire Island, and I saw him, and he was covered in these purple spots. And I remember asking my dad, what's wrong with Steve? And my dad said, he has this skin cancer called Kaposi's sarcoma. And I said, well, what is that? And my dad said, well, nobody really knows, but there's some gay men that are getting it. And within, I think, 2 months, Steve was dead. And it was pretty much a succession of deaths of my family throughout the next decade. My stepdad, Bill, died in 1987. My dad died in 1991 after a really grueling 6 months of me taking care of him. I was 19 and was on a break from college and exhausted from taking care of my dad. And I called up my auntie, Eddie. I said, can you help? And within, a week, he'd organized 40 people to do round-the-clock shifts. He was the only other person in the room with me and my mom when my dad died. At that point, everyone had died except for a handful of stragglers who I now hold near and dear to my heart, my aunties. It was a powerful family. There was a lot of love. And they modeled for me how to survive an epidemic even if you were dying while doing it.
And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Stephen Lynch.
As a kid growing up in the gay community in Toronto in the 70s and 80s, I occupied two very different worlds. There was the gay community with our fierce politics and our fabulous brunches and our long days on the beaches of Fire Island. And then there was the straight world, right? There was at school and on the street. And that was the world that didn't recognize my family. My family and community were just decimated by an epidemic of political expediency, really, leaving us to die while the world went about its business. And that violence of silence alienated me from my generation. But through StoryCorps, I've reconnected. And that has done a lot of good. It's done a lot of good for me to be heard without having to shout. There's a lot of stories out there. And what StoryCorps did is found this one. And I'm so hopeful that StoryCorps will continue to find those stories that we all need to hear for decades to come.
Thank you, Stefan. As the proud son of a gay father, I've always felt a deep connection to your story. It means a great deal to me. Thank you for being a part of the StoryCorps family. I want to talk for a minute about an effort we're deeply focused on now at StoryCorps. In the wake of the 2016 elections, with the rapid escalation in the culture of contempt across the political divides, we started to think about whether there might be a role for us to play in helping people see the humanity in one another despite our differences. In 2018, we started testing One Small Step, a new kind of StoryCorps interview that brings together strangers who disagree politically for conversations, not to argue about issues, but simply to get to know each other as human beings. We know now that we have a unique and powerful tool that has the potential to turn thems into us's. Over the next 3 years, we're going to scale One Small Step in the hopes of convincing the country that it's our patriotic duty to see the humanity in those with whom we disagree. Here are just a few voices from One Small Step.
The climate that we're operating under has everyone on the defensive.
You see a person and you automatically put them in a box and say,
well, this is what this person should be like.
Strangers in the coffee shop, strangers on the subway, everybody is on the defensive.
All of this ostracizing people, what are we afraid of?
We're called to love one another. It can't be, I reject you as a person.
This country's been through so much. Its people has been through so much. Why can't we fix this?
Do we have issues we have to deal with? Yes, we do. But we're not going to be able to deal with them if we're fighting and yelling at each other and not listening.
It was important for me to meet somebody who didn't have horns and a tail.
Yeah, she has an accent. Oh gosh, she dressed funny, but we're talking the same thing. We're all concerned about our children, concerned about the world we live in.
A lot of people wouldn't even think we should be here talking to each other, but I'm sorry, I disagree.
We are connected in probably 12 different ways I can think of right like that. Yeah, I can give you a hug.
Now, a final story of grace and inspiration to close the evening. Two brothers who talk about growing up on a farm in rural Alabama and the many lessons they learned from their father Ben. Let's watch.
There were 9 of us at home at one time. All the boys was in one room. We had 2 beds. 2 slept at the head and 2 slept at the feet. And there was one thing about them feet. You washed them feet before you went to bed.
We only had one cash crop, which was cotton. And we were just breaking even. You had a hole in your jeans, or your mama put a patch
over
in
it, and you kept right on going.
Kept right on going.
And the kids today, they take jeans out, hang them on the line, and shoot them to put holes in them.
My first lesson in economics, Daddy taught it to me. We had worked and made a little extra money, and we wanted to go to the fair. I had made $6. $6, man, I was on top of the world. I played games, I ate cotton candy. I came back home, and Daddy asked me, boy, how much money did you spend at the fair? And I just held my head down and said, Daddy, I spent it all. He said, boy, you spent all your money, and haircuts gone up to 75 cents. So I'll always keep me enough money to get me a haircut.
Daddy was warm. If he got it, he'd give it to you. If he didn't have it, he'd tell you how to get it.
You remember when Daddy started the syrup mill?
Yes.
Yes, and people in the community would bring their cane and mill it for us to grind up and make syrup. And people would pay with buckets of syrup. I said, Daddy, why don't you let these people pay you? Because we got enough syrup to last us for a long time. And he looked at me and he said, son, these people don't have no money to pay. That's the only way they can pay.
Daddy taught us all how to do the right thing and wanted us to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. He kept me out of school one day because he was delivering lumber. The directions that were given to him were not very clear. And since Daddy, he only went to the 3rd grade, he couldn't read the address. And I said, I'll help you, Daddy. I couldn't have been no more than 8 or 10 years old. It was just heartbreaking. There are things that I try to pass on to my son. There's only 2 things in life a person actually owns, and that is his name and his word. And in his own way, that's what Daddy left me with.
Your name and your word. That's what StoryCorps has preserved for hundreds of thousands of everyday Americans for the past 17 years and will continue to preserve for many years to come. I'd like to thank you all for attending our gala tonight. We hope this night has offered a small beacon of hope and comfort as we come to the end of a very long and difficult year. If what you've seen from StoryCorps speaks to you, or if you want to get involved, don't forget that we're only able to capture these stories because of the contributions and donations from each of you. So please, visit StoryCorps.org and click on the donate button, the beating heart you'll find at the top of the site to make a donation. Next year, we hope to see you all in person. Until then, don't forget that everyone has a story, and every story matters. Have a good night, Stay safe, and thank you.